Mahalo and welcome back to Maebashi, which is episode 3. And we're picking up right where we left off in terms of the plot twist in the post-credit scene, which, mind you, if you're not watching the post-credit scenes for these episodes, you're doing yourself a disservice. There's like major plot points thrown in. Like they said, you better watch that ending theme because you're gonna get the next bit, and if you miss it, ooh, you're gonna be behind. Nonetheless, we check back in with Azu and get more of her backstory, which definitely falls back into that self-loathing, and they really drive that home. I know that, like, besides the image we saw at the end of last episode, like, the self-loathing was still, like, mildly in the guess range, if you want to go that way, but very much confirmed here that her hatred towards fat people completely stems from a self-hatred. And it does one thing that I respect that a lot of other series have moved away from, but thankfully this is one of those ones where it's like not a kid show, so it's easier for me to be like, oh, they actually created bullies. That's like, it's such a thing that they'll do in kid shows, and it's a responsibility thing for writing something for a younger audience, but we're not dealing with a younger audience here. They have bullies. They have people who are rude AF, dude. These guys are saying the most heinous things, describing her in the most heinous ways. We do learn that, like, her money situation is that she is rich, but obviously that's not compensating for her physical appearance, which I think is an interesting play that they go for in this series, but it also makes more sense on why she also is so obsessed with brand names and things like that, because she's somebody who can afford it, but society doesn't feel like she looks the part. So despite having something that makes her privileged, she still faces a level of discrimination and leads to this level of self-hatred. And then we have, like, Kedopi roll in the way that I, like, thought he would, but at the same time, it is so uncomfortable for this entire scene that he shows up. And he comes in here like he's Cube. Like, this dude comes right in and is like, hey, I see you have an insecurity. Don't worry, I've got magic. We'll just take that insecurity away. Awful. I hate every second of this. Also, he does something that I think is very noteworthy that's fourth wall breaking here, which is she gets scared when he appears, and he's like, ah, that's more like it. That's the normal reaction. But technically speaking, in chronological order, he met Yuna after he met Azu. Azu was the first girl that he selected, but he's reacting as if he had already recruited Yuna. So there's some time nonsense going on here. Kudape becomes exponentially more suspicious as this goes on. I don't know if he's gonna go in the direction that they go with mascot fairy type characters, where, like, he does not the most moral things on the planet to, like, push people to learn, like, morality and grow as a person in, like, a very god-esque way, or if he's just straight up evil. If he's straight up a slime ball. I've got questions. I've got concerns. I've got feelings. It's just suspicious. I'm gonna say that. But all in all, it hurts. It hurts that he genuinely, like, is picking on her insecurities, where he's like, well, if you become a witch, you basically can solve this problem. Which is not, like, he's also tackling it in such a way that is counterproductive to what the girls are doing, which is, thus far, at least from our first wish, and as we will come into our second wish, the wish is not necessarily about granting and solving the immediate problem. So far, it's been empowering the individual to find a way to determine how they want to move forward and granting that wish of courage, and not so much being like, bippity boppity boom, your problems are gone. But obviously here, he's using magic to find a solution, quote unquote, to solve her problem, quote unquote. And this just kind of, oh, it was so painful to watch as he just, like, snaps his fingers and he's like, yeah, girl, you skinny now. And her reaction to it really, it sucks, dude. This whole episode, especially if you've ever had any kind of body issues, this is it's one of those painful episodes to watch. Oh god, I hated watching this scene. I hated seeing the way, like, her attitude shifted, and oh, it's so painful, dude. And then it makes a point to tell us why specifically Azu didn't like somebody like Yuna. And I think this is interesting because besides just finding her annoying and finding that she keeps getting the things or already possesses the things that Azu desires, the thing that makes her hate Yuna the most is that Yuna made the statement about how one's effort is more desirable than just outright granting a wish and just have it magically happen. That climbing the hill is kind of more of what people find satisfying in life. Which to Azu is kind of indirectly looking down on her by taking quote unquote the easy way out in using magic to change her appearance. And it's very interesting, and it's why I think the sort of tension between the two of them isn't so shallow as it can be in other series. I think there's genuinely like not only the self-hatred but like the envy that exists here. And I like it so much more that there's all these layers of depth to what's going on. But it also makes it a much harder situation to solve in a story. Also, just to go off on my theory, kind of like looking at the opening, I should have done this before, but there's a couple of hints here. I'm gonna like sit on my little ship. I'm gonna sit on my little ship and it's gonna sink and I'm gonna be wrong. But I like this theory that Kyoka might actually be a boy. Because we see everybody in these like opening scenes and we get a good shot of them wearing uniforms. Here, the bridge just barely conveniently covers up Kyoko's bottoms where you're like, is it a skirt or is it shorts? Could go either way. It could go either way. It's probably a skirt. I'm probably overthinking things. But what we do take away from the opening that I love is that they did hide the fact that, like, they hide the fact of Azu's true appearance when she's in the regular world by having her inside here and being sad, which I noticed when I first saw the opening. I was like, oh, she's in the Witchverse rather than walking around the way the other girls are in the opening, and it kind of shows how she's standoffish for them. But they did this conveniently to hide her backstory. Which, props to at least, like, being pretty sneaky about hiding aspects like that. And I imagine that we're gonna have that happen for the rest of the girls. I'm gonna imagine that there's all these little tiny Easter eggs that we have for all of them, and I just haven't figured them out yet. I'm gonna solve the mystery. Anyways, picking up from where we were with the other group, who were all like, I can't believe Azu just did that. We're all real mad at her. Ringo actually comes back, who is our model, who's like, hey guys, I like actually for reals was going to buy flowers though. Which is funny because they're all like, wait, we have to be a florist. And then Yuina attempts to apologize to some degree on Azu's behalf, which Rinko is beyond a strong character, because let me tell you, if I went into a work of business and they like had the audacity to like say they hate me because some aspect of my appearance, I would never come back. Never would come back. But she's like, I get that a lot. Girl, don't say that. That hurts so bad. What do you mean you get that a lot? No one should be saying, I'm on Yuina's side, where she's like, yeah, no one should be saying that. That should not be like an expectation. I hate the world. Dude, I hate the world. Can't imagine ever saying that to somebody's face. Oh my god. But Yuina impressively showcases that she does actually have some florist skills. Like, I need to drive this home for people who don't know. But, like, floral arrangements takes a lot of skill. Like, it's not particularly easy to come up with a very appealing flower arrangement based on the type of flowers and the assortments of colors and then the length of the stem. Like, there's a lot of factors you have to think about when it comes to floral arrangements. And I think this was very beautiful. And then I don't know if this is another thing I should be overanalyzing or not, but Kyoka reveals that she's good at tying bows, where that's the one thing that Yuina can't do. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if that, like, that she knows how to handle ropes because she used to work on a fish farm or something. Like, I don't know what I gotta do here, but there's some kind of mystery, dude. I've gotta solve it. I'm gonna figure it out, dude. I'm trying. I'm gonna be so mad when hindsight's 2020 on, like, the reveal for all of them. It's gonna make me so angry. And then Rinko ends up taking this bouquet to a reunion she goes to. And again, I'm gonna slap every one of these. Like, to be fair, these kids were bullying her when they were younger. They're just gonna bully her now. But, like, I hate they were saying the worst things to her. They were saying nasty stuff to, like, just around her. Like, what the heck? What the heck? They're so rude. And then even, like, whoever's, like, I don't know why she's the centerpiece. Is she dying? Like, I was not paying enough attention to these people. They were making me too angry. But she's even like, oh yeah, you know, thank God that you don't care about your appearance now that you're old. Shut up! Shut up! Such a... Ooh, they're so awful! Ooh. But then we get another reveal that I thought was really cute. They did it very subtly, but she ends up talking to a woman on the phone who she laments about her day, who gives her a lot of encouragement. He's like, don't hang out with these people, they suck. Don't be anywhere near them. And I'm like, this girl's onto something. This girl's onto something. Very encouraging, and then, like, you know, leaves it on, like, you come home and I'll love you. I'll have all the love for you that those idiots didn't have for you. And I was like, oh, this is important for later. This is important later. But Very cute. And I'm glad that she has at least one decent person in her life because everyone else sucks. Oh, oh. She also gets a job opportunity for another modeling gig after her first one, which I do have to put this out here because this is another thing that I overlooked before, was I did not pick up on the fact that the balloon ad that she had in the previous episode was like supposed to be derogatory to her being overweight. I thought that was just a bit where it's like, balloons are cute and this is a cute outfit. It's like it's being derogatory towards this is me not trying to be mean to people at all, that my brain literally turned off the meanness in there. And I was like, oh, she's taking these jobs on where they like specifically are looking for somebody who's overweight and to like kind of be rude to them in that, like a backhanded kind of thing, or maybe a front-handed thing on some of these. And that, it made me sad. It made me sad. I thought she was just like a plus size model who's just like clothes for everybody because we're inclusive and we don't need to be mean. And you should be able to wear whatever you want regardless of your body size. I feel bad that I didn't notice that last episode. And then into another moment that was kind of a surprise, but also one of the reasons why I've really grown to like Yuna as our protagonist this far, is Azu comes back and kind of like brushes it off, pretends that she doesn't really know what's going on, ignores like what happened. But Yuna immediately hits her with like, girl, do you know what you did was wrong? And Azu's like, yeah. And Yuna's like, okay, good, as long as you know that. I like the messaging that they do have here to a degree, because I do think that when certain characters are kind of awful, I think there's a level of pressure that's worth putting on them to be like, hey, your actions were not okay. But I do like that Yuna doesn't hyperfixate on that. She's not like, we're going to have a yelling match, because it's kind of like, it doesn't, like, telling somebody they did something wrong isn't super productive when you just keep hammering it down, despite, like, you emotionally wanting to do that. Like, there is a level of, like, Azu needs to be told flat out, hey girl, that was not cool, and that was a problem. But I also, like, especially, not that Yuna knows, but obviously Azu's sort of crash out last episode was not coming from a place of just being nasty because she's nasty to people at random. That she's just nasty for nasty's sake. She does have that level of self-loathing and that she does need to overcome it herself. So I know that this is probably a point of contention where some people think Yuna should have been harder on her, but I do think it's very much within Yuna to be like, hey, are we able to acknowledge that what happened wasn't cool? And she's like, cool, okay, let's go to the next, let's move on. Which I think fits who she is, especially since, again, the other characters kind of balance out that. Specifically Mai. Mai, again, I'm really liking Mai. Mai is a very interesting character to me. Mai's like, don't expect me to be the bigger person. Don't expect me to be like, I'm so over the way Azu behaved. And they have this bit of conversation where Yuna drives home what I had mentioned before, which is it's not worth it to like really tear into somebody, especially when like there's a little bit of merit to the fact that like we all make mistakes and stuff, and there's no sense in harboring it and just like making it worse. But I do see a little bit of what Mai says too, where she's like, I don't really want to make the bad guy feel like they won. I don't want them to feel like they can get away with that behavior and then repeat it later. I think there's a little bit of a balancing act here, but for the sake of the story moving forward, I think this was the best way to handle it. Especially, again, we only got 12 episodes, and it's already really fast-paced, and we gotta keep the pace going. So I think this is probably one of the most practical ways they could have solved this and then kept the story rolling. But I don't want a series where you don't call out people for bad behavior, but I also think from a viewer standpoint, it's also kind of irritating to watch them fight for like 1,000 years, which is also one of the reasons why I'm so happy that the Azu plot line and getting Azu to be less mean is getting handled sooner than later in this series, because I cannot handle the bickering at the level it was in episode 1 for an entire 12 episode run. In the meantime, we have Ringo come back to the flower shop, which I guess this is one of the other questions I had, is if they screw up with a customer, will the customer return? Because it's all like based on like magic and desire, but I assume that because her wish wasn't technically speaking fulfilled, she'll just keep coming back, be continually led here until this is solved to some degree or moved on. But this allows her to have a conversation with Azu, and she clocks Azu like no one's business. Very much in this, like, her mindset's the same mindset that I had, which is like, Azu, were you ever overweight at one point? And is that why you have like such harsh feelings specifically to Rinko? And so Rinko picked up on that too, which I like. I like a intuitive character. And you have Rinko share her story Which I love that they put Azu's like past visuals on it to kind of drive home the stuff that Azu has had to go through and how much like even hearing Ringo say it, she immediately is like, yeah, that's what I am dealing with. Like it sucks. Not only was she bullied at school, but you have like you go to a clothes store and the clerk is like, oh, we don't have that in your size, which is awful. Awful, awful, awful. And we just kind of see Azu go through the whole bit and just kind of start to break down how much it has sucked to go through all of this and how she doesn't have the courage to tell everybody the real way she is and fully accept herself. But you do see the more that we dive into Ringo's story, as well as Azu start to come from a more understanding place rather than kind of a repulsed place. As well as, again, back to the like derogatory modeling that they're trying to hire Ringo for. They made the comment that like Azu's like, so you've given up on working out, and Ringo replies with, I've just become happy with who I am. It's no longer like I'm not going to try to break myself in order to be some kind of ideal. I've just come to like myself, but obviously the world still hasn't gotten to a point where it can treat people better. And it's a very, very heavy story, and I literally everything Ringo was saying was putting me on the verge of tears. Like, it sucks for someone who's really become happy with themselves, but they're still unhappy because the world's not happy with them. And it sucks so much. We do get an answer to the question that I had back in episode 1, which is, are the stages going to change for each song? And happily, that is true. They do. Everything about the stage and situation for the music bit is completely different from the first song, which I love. They're really not reusing anything for the most part, and I'm so happy about that. It sparks so much joy. And we finally get Azu song, which I've come to realize that the first song and the first episode was Yuina's song, so we have Azu song, and then as we will find out, we're going to move to probably another 2-episode arc with Mai and have her be our next song. But nonetheless, we get to go into some amazing visuals. They start out in this kind of very metropolitan city balloon scenario, paralleling the modeling job that Ringo took initially. And just to drive home, like, it being not the good choice and, like, it not being the way she should live and paralleling it to the bullying. We even have, like, these, like, nasty faces put on the balloons. So I think this visually cracks into what both of our characters need to do to evolve, because even Ringo is not obviously perfect and content, and part of the song is to grant that wish of courage. And then the visuals switch to this near black and white scenario, which I love the visuals here. They're so good. And we go from like all of these balloons to very sharp and spiky and very intense visuals. And we have Ringo enter this song and like really embody it. Her outfit is so gorgeous. She looks so good. I genuinely like, I feel like I've never seen anime try to handle a larger sized character like this before and do a pretty phenomenal job at handling the visuals. Like, they don't try to like skinnyify her to make her quote unquote beautiful. She looks gorgeous as she is, and they handle the character well visually. I just feel like series just don't do that. I think there's only been a very select few that I can say have handled it similarly and done a good enough job. It sucks because I don't think we're really going to see much of Ringo outside of this episode. I'd love to see her again. She's a fantastic character. I'd love a series just about her. But to see a bigger female character in a show be handled this well is just so rare to see. But I mean, look at her! Look at this queen! Look at the visuals! Her outfit's so cool. And like, having this very spiky motif versus the balloon aspect they had before is just brilliant. I think it works so well, and the song's really good. It just matches the vibe perfectly. I also like that each of the girls have this unique colored lighting on them while they're in the black and white phase. It's so nice. It takes a level of detail and work to do, but it's very, very appealing, and I just absolutely love the visuals for the song so much. This easily has become my favorite. And then I started crying when I saw her younger form sitting there kind of like cheering on as she's like gaining the courage she needed. And I'm like, oh, I'm so emotional. Oh, it's so beautiful. I do think it's goofy silly that I have her here in 2D and the rest of them were in 3D. That was mildly jarring, but I think for the impact of the song, it was necessary. And then again, like, the 3D looks very good. This does not necessarily look like a 3D image. And I I'm quite impressed with how well they're handling it. And honestly, very good song. Very good song to fit the theming and be very unique to the show, but also have a general good messaging. I liked it a lot for Azu's song. 10 out of 10. And then my Queen Ringo. We just had to have another shot. I honestly, God, I need her to be on the runway with this outfit. I hope at the very least we'll see little, like, nuggets of the success stories they've had this season sometime towards the finale, if not earlier, just seeing all these characters, like, choosing the path that they want to choose and living the lives that they want to live. Like, oh, I just want to see them again. I think the characters are they write really good characters in this show. They have a really good supporting cast. I'd love just a series about Ringo. And back to where we were before. She had mentioned that she had a person in her life who is her partner. Ooh, does our lady, is she with a lady? I like that they kind of like subtly drop this queer thing going on, which is also more of the reason why I want to see Ringo. She's such an interesting character. I want to see her story. I want to see her wife. I want to see so much. But she ultimately decides to turn down the pig job and cites her reasoning too that she wants to be something more impressive for these girls, which, as someone who is an adult who clearly clocks that somebody like Azu is going through what she had gone through, her wanting to be a bigger inspiration for them, I think, is unbelievably sweet. I really like that. I also like that she, for her flower, which is technically not a flower, it's a plant, is a cactus. I like that she got something that kind of represents blooming in adversity. I think that was a good choice. I don't know if that's a flower language thing, but obviously, you know, cactuses be like, I don't care if it's a dry desert and we're not supposed to grow here, we're gonna be here. So, like, logically, to me, this is like a really good flower pick for her. Quote unquote flower. It's very well planned out. I like it a lot. And then we have Azu, which I knew that her storyline wasn't going to be completely solved by the end of this. I think it'd be far too soon. As well as, again, I think her suddenly being comfortable with her body would probably mean that the animators would have to draw her differently and her 3D model would have to be different moving forward. And I don't really have faith in an anime studio doing that. And I'm kind of correct. They did not. She did not get over her body image. She still has not told the other girls her situation. If they were to do that, it'd probably be at the end of the season if I had to guess. I do hope, especially with the way that this is kind of setting up, it'd be pretty solid to have a second season for this show. And I would love if they do have a second season that she does ultimately accept the way she looks and that's her appearance for the next season, if they were to have one. But that also requires us to get over the one season hump. It needs to be successful enough. And then you also have to have the writers sit there and actually commit to doing that, which would be nice. But I know a lot of people also found this a bit underwhelming. I think some people did find this a bit disappointing that she didn't opt to confess all the way about herself and open up to the girls in that manner. And I'm definitely in the camp of like, it bums me out. I think I said last episode it was going to bum me out that they were going to do this, but I also knew they were going to do this. I hope it gets addressed some point in the season. I definitely don't want them finishing off the season / series with them never addressing it and her never confessing to the girls. But maybe they're saving, like, at best, they're saving this for, like, a big confession towards the end of the show where they all really have, like, a big confessional heart-to-heart with one another, and she can, like, finally, like, fully open up to them. But she does open up in one way, which I'm kind of curious when this played out, because she ultimately had a pair of shoes that are the perfect color for Yuina's outfit, as well as, like, matching her color palette and her shoe size and whatnot. And she had that. Now, technically speaking, story-wise, she would have had to have purchased these shoes before she met up with the girls at the beginning of the day. And that was when they were still, like, you know, the fighting was happening. I wonder if she's the kind of person who is like, ooh, I knew I went too far and I've been too harsh on Yuina, and she always planned to do this as an apology and just, like, had the shoes in the wings. Because she definitely couldn't have done it between her showing up today and her having her conversation with Ringo to the song performance to now. Like, she's been in the studio the whole time. So she bought these shoes beforehand. So she, if my theory is correct, she always intended to apologize and to, like, bridge the gap between her and Yuina. So I think that's something to think about. In the meantime, we get a little bit more plot twists because we haven't had enough. We learned that despite actually scoring very high today, they get close to, like, I think, like 350 points. A significant amount of those points are ultimately deducted because they had to use magic to do several things in the show, such as like get their outfits, moving around. Like every action they use magic technically is costing these points that they've accrued thus far, which is very, very interesting. Like I'm curious at how that necessarily works in the grand scheme of things, because obviously they use some degree of magic and they were able to use magic before they opened the shop. But like these points that they can use magic for seem to be a whole different breed, like maybe a stronger form of magic than what they can do inherently as witches. It opens up a lot of questions. And also all of them accuse Keti of scamming them. So at least they're all immediately suspicious of this dude and the way he's handling stuff, because it's very mastermindy thus far. What his intentions are beyond us. Is he doing this all for the sake of good and improving these girls' lives, or is he a Cube and he's got some quota to fill and they're just fodder for it all? I don't know. I don't know. But ultimately, we do get to see that Azu is now in a place where she's on better terms with the crew, and I assume that the fighting will go down significantly for the subsequent episodes. I don't imagine, as I've said before, that her cattiness will completely evaporate, but it won't be as much of a problem as it has been thus far. And then we got this cute little shot of her. She looks very adorable. The animation was very nice here. Then we get Mai. Then we have Mai, which I have like stayed up all night trying to figure this out. She is depleting very slowly the magic that they have accrued and is doing something that it looks like on her phone. And I've been trying to figure out what, because she's using it in very small increments rather than anything big and deluxe. So she's like getting something relatively small beat by beat. And I've just been trying to figure out if I could guess what it was ahead of time. Like, I don't think it's money, because we did learn that, like, from an episode ago, we learned that money is not something that they can bring into the world permanently. With the magic, it will fade away, but maybe that's just their inherent magic and not, like, the metered magic. That's still up in the air, but I doubt it's money, and she didn't seem like she had a huge financial issue. It's not food, which was the other thing I was gonna think of. Like, say she came from a rather poor family and was like in desperate need of food. Because technically speaking, she denied free food when it was offered initially with Yuna, so I doubt it's food. I was like, maybe lottery tickets, something along those lines. Where you could get that incrementally. I don't think she's a nerdy character and secretly has like a huge stash of like nerd stuff that she's acquiring, so I don't know if it's necessarily that. Like, otherwise she'd be doing it to like win characters on a gacha game. I don't feel like that's her either. Could be though. I don't know if she's maybe buying tickets or something and like reselling them. I'm not sure. The last theory I could have is that she seems to be very like futuristic, or at least very modern. She mentions a couple of times that things are considered retro or old school or just too old-fashioned for her, because she didn't like the outfit and how like retro styled it was. She didn't like handing out pamphlets and commented about how those were retro. So I don't know if it's a tech-related thing and that maybe she's like the daughter of somebody in a tech industry and there's something there. I don't know. I've been thinking about it. Join me in crazy theories and trying to figure out what in the world is her thing. And what problems it's going to turn into the next episode, because it looks like we're going to have a, like, court case episode on who stole the magic. And whether, we know it's her, but, like, gonna be a very Danganronpa Ace Attorney kind of episode, but we'll see. But until next time, bye-bye!